Welcome to 3dmotive.com. My name is Stephen G. Wells. I'm a senior 3D artist. In this series, we're going to take a look at the program called Knald. It's a map generating program. It'll generate your height map, your normal map, derivative, ambient occlusion, convexity, concavity, and even a transmission map. You only need a single image to be able to start working that. You can adjust all the fine details. Especially with the ambient occlusion maps, you can really adjust how that's going to be. Again, you can bring in just a simple black and white image, or we can start with a color image, let's say, of tree bark, and we can go from there. We, in fact, will work with a photograph I took in Scotland from a gravestone and instantly be able to create normal maps and ambient occlusion maps based on that. It's really a robust program, that's for sure. We're then going to actually take a mesh that has UVs, just a sphere, and we're going to actually create the moon with it, with a simple height map we're going to use of the lunar surface, and we're going to be able to make all the adjustments we need, and then review the model in Marmoset to take a look at how well everything worked out. Okay, let's get started. Knald is a great little program for creating maps when you don't have them. Let's go ahead and take a look at Knald. So this is the interface for Knald. This is the main viewport that you get. There's a lot of information we're going to go through, and we're going to take it slow, so because otherwise it could be a little bit confusing. It's not that there's so many things going on that you can't keep track of it, but there's a lot of good information, and we want to make it as clear and concise as possible for you. Okay. So this is the basic interface. Now, when you open it, it'll generally come up with a 3-panel shot, which is this is the 3D viewer. You'll have your integrator, and then on the left hand side you will have the 2D viewport where your maps will show. But of course, for this size recording, I can't get that all in very well without it squeezing one side or the other. So we're going to take this in sections. All right. So the first 2 sections we're going to look at is our 2D viewport. This is where your map will appear. We've got a tab for height, for normal, for derivative, for AO, ambient occlusion, a concavity map, a convexity map, and a transmission. Now the concavity, of course, will be, looking at some of the valleys. The convexity looks at the peaks. And transmission map is something similar to, the idea behind it is something similar to a bit of a scatter map. But we're not going to be necessarily looking at that in this particular series. But we will be checking out the other different maps, okay? Now this is the main viewport for the integrator. This is what will be between the 2 scenes. Again, if I show the 3D viewport, you've got the viewport, you've got your integrator, and you've got the 2D map side of things, okay? And I'm just clicking this button here, hide the 3D preview. Now, each one of these things, of course, obviously has information to it. You can load a normal map or derivative map. You can load a height map. It also shows you the shortcuts. When you mouse over it, if you're not sure what something is, it'll literally show you the shortcut, what it is, etc. Loading a color map is Control-Alt-O. Load a height map is Control-Shift-O, and load a normal map is just Control-O. So Control-Open, Command O doesn't open what you would assume to be a color map when you usually open things. It's looking for a normal map. So keep that in mind. If you're going to do Control-O, you're opening a normal map. You're looking for a normal map. Otherwise, we're looking for a height map or a color map. Okay. This is where we can make, if the map is going to be tileable, if it has an alpha, flipping green, as you can see it, as I hold it over, it says a toggle to flip the green channel on the normal and derivative maps. Okay. By default, as you can see, holding it over there, Knald is set to X plus, Y plus, Z plus. Okay. Keep that in mind, because if your normal map ever looks inverted and it's not right, you have to invert or you have to flip the green channel. Okay. Now, of course, we can also adjust the bump scale, and of course, the bump scale is how strong the effect of the normal map or the maps it's going to create for you, how strong that's going to appear on your meshes. Now, Knald can actually push quite a number of polygons. It's not like you have to use low polygon models. You can use some high poly models. In fact, I think I read something where it can easily handle up to like 2 million polygons. So it's not like you need something really low to be able to do this, okay? And again, it really shouldn't matter because this is a map creation, but we can put it onto meshes, custom meshes or meshes that have the UVs that you need, all right? The integrator itself, the controls for the integrator, now it has a default of 300. That's how many times it's going to be hitting the map with the rays, with what it's going to do with its functionality. You can actually scale this up or down by this arrow. You can actually just turn it down, so you can see, or you can turn it up just by clicking and dragging, okay? You can actually adjust that here with the scale of features. If you go, right now it's a manual, it means it's a default. If you change it to small, it actually just moved it down to 83. Now it says 300, but it's not. It's down into the 80s. And you can actually adjust the scale of that. The manual obviously is 300, but large goes all the way up to 500. You don't need anything that much. I've never actually moved this from the 300. I mean, it's been perfect for every time I've used it. All right. This particular slider actually will help you with the slope of the surface, whether it's going to be more of a continuous kind of value on the left-hand side, meaning if there are 2 pixels that have similar values, it'll try to blend them, or if you go to the derivative side, it actually tries to preserve, and in fact it even says it right there, it tries to preserve it at the expense of the continuity between the pixel values. It tries to make it a little bit sharper, a little harder, all right? So that's something to keep in mind. Again, I've never actually had to adjust that either. I mean, we can adjust it out, test it out, and some different things, but as before, I've never even had to adjust that. I have adjusted the slope range. That's how well, the more you change the slider is the more accurate the map can be. Now it does say this should be used with caution. As you can see right there, that the results may vary and can depend greatly on the quality of the imported image. So obviously, if your image is small, say 256 by 256, you're not going to be gaining a whole lot more by changing that particular range. But if you've got a map of 1024, 2048, 4096, an 8K map or anything like that, then obviously sliding that, you can actually gain some richer, more clear details out of that. So that's something to keep in mind. We can also do the enable noise reduction. Sometimes that can come in handy, sometimes not. And that's a default. And then we can go for smoothing, where we can try and smooth some of the texture. So it's like putting a soft blur on it. All right. We can also adjust here with the normal map, or what kind of map it is. If we click it, we can start with the normal or the derivative. Okay. Again, I keep it as a default. I haven't had to do much with that. If we click the export tab, this is where you decide what maps you're trying to generate. Now, as a default, the height map, AO map, and convexity maps are already pre-checked for you. I can check them all if I want, just like that. Okay. You can check the export normal derivative from color to a normal. You can set your export path by clicking this little button here. Now, one of the things is you can do it here, or you can go to the main and you can do it here. The export path is the same. Once you set it, that's it. Now, if you set it here, though, in the export tab, and you set it, you can actually scroll down and save that particular path and that particular configuration. Everything we set in here, you can actually save it by clicking this button down here, and it'll become your default. Now, the nice thing with this is with the different types of maps is you click the little arrow and can change it, the TIFF, to an EXR, PNG, or a Targa. From there, of course, we have different inputs. Like with the TIFF, we have the 8-bit, 16-bit, 16-bit float, and 32-bit float. If we go to the, say, the EXR, we have the 16-bit, 32-bit float. All right, PNG, it gives us an 8-bit or a 16-bit. That's it. And with the Targa, we have the 8-bit, and that's it. Okay, but these can be different. If you want, sometimes normal maps can be. I tend to use Targas, but I've seen some people where the TIFFs sometimes, depending on how it's generated, is a little bit sharper. Weirdly enough, sometimes it's kind of a mix. But you can have different maps. I could have a Targa on my normal and my height. On my AO, I could leave it as a TIFF. I could change the values here. Okay. One of the nice things is with this global export right here, if I change this global export to say TGA and 8-bit, you'll notice it changed everything for me, because global is of course changing it on a global factor. It's not just, here I can do it one by one. I can check each one and save out each one. But if I choose to do it with the global export, it will change all of them at the same time. And again, you can turn around and scroll down here and hit save, and it will save it as your regular standard default. Okay. With preferences, you can flip. This is where, in fact, you can flip your green channel. If you, I think Y plus is like Maya, and I think Y minus is 3ds Max. So if you need to, you can always just click the flip green if you're trying to generate a normal map from or for 3D Studio Max, and if you're not, then you can check that right off. Okay. We have the prefix and suffix settings. So that's the things before what we're calling it. Whether it's like, say, a normal map for a face, we call it T underscore and then type in face. We can change for height, normal, derivative, AO. It has all of this here. And you can turn around and keep these. You can turn around and change what you want to do, and then you can click the enable the prefix. If you don't change this or you don't add that, then you're going to be hand naming it. Okay, so it's just up to you. It just depends on what you want to do. And like I said, you can just rename this as you need them. Like for a normal map, you don't have to have it underscore normal. You could have it underscore N, for instance. You could have underscore AO for ambient occlusion, something like that. All right, for our 3D view, you can change the mesh axis so that Y is up, or if you click the little arrow, you can go Z is up. Just depends on what you are using. I don't know, if you're doing Modo or Softimage or whatever, it might be different. So we have that option to be able to move it as we need to. We can enable the gamma correction on specular. I tend to leave that. I tend to not ever uncheck that. So, but at least you're able to take it off should you need to. The use per vertex tangent space. Again, I've never had to click that off. I like to leave it on. So in the miscellaneous, you can prioritize the integration performance. I've never had to change that, but you guys could. You can path the displacement into the alpha of the normal map. Of course, you have to check that, and it'll do it. You can use the alpha by default. Display update notifications on startup. Display update notifications for beta releases, and you can enable the tooltips. Now the tooltips are every time you hold your mouse over something, you get that tooltip. If it bugs you and you don't want it, click that off and you can hit save, and you've now kept it as your regular preferences. Last tab is info. Okay, this shouldn't be too surprising. We have RGB. If we had a map in here, you'd see the 3 different values for it. You'd see each one, the different unique value counts for it. It'd give you the image name, type, height, width, all of that, the bit depth, file format, file size. Okay, it's the info. It's nice to have. I really don't use that for looking at anything. But it's nice informationally to be able to have it should we need it. All right, let's go ahead and look at the last panel, which is hidden. Again, this is this button here. Usually when you open it up, like I said, Knald, you'll have this view, and this view. Unfortunately, because of the recording sizes for this series, I can't fit it all in nice and proportionately. You can, when it is larger, as you can see, you can move it around as you need to. If this ever actually bugs you, the fact that you can't get everything in here, you can actually click there was a little icon there like for a, page where you can actually separate it out. So you can actually move it around. You can actually fix it over here. In fact, you can see that it does right there. So if you wanted to do that on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side, you could. Again, if you grab this little icon here and just click it, you now have a free-form, free-flowing panel. You can actually just move it off the screen should you want to. Okay. We'll go ahead and leave it over in the regular position for now. It's usually on the right-hand side, at least it is generally for me. For this, and of course this isn't going to make sense till we load up something, we're gonna be able to do a couple of different views. We can actually load in a diffuse map. It's kind of hard to see, it's grayed out, but we can load a diffuse, specular, and an actual mesh, the low poly mesh or even a high poly mesh. We have different light setups, 4 different light setups that we can still turn on and move the maps for. We have a parallax checkbox that we can click, and of course we've got parallax if we need it. We can do colored lights. If we take that out, you'd have just white lights. When we bring in a sphere or a cylinder or anything else, when you see it on the screen, we'll go through the colored lights and see what you actually can get. Again, we can intensify the specular map. We can crank it right up or crank it down. Same with the glossiness. We can crank that up and down. We can tile, do our UV tiles. We can actually ramp that so it's up. They're both locked right now. If you click that off, you can actually do one up as 3, this one down to 2, or whatever. It's whatever you want to be able to do. Generally, I don't tend to change the tiles more than leave it at 1. Just keep it as a simple setup. For the lighting, again, now this kind of runs off screen, you can't see it, but this just shows you that you can pick between lighting, your height map, AO, concavity, convexity, normal, and derivative. And that's what you see just in the scenes. Okay, lighting means everything's showing. We'll actually have a plane. We'll have a cylinder, as you can see, although it's kind of hard to see right now at the moment. We do have a sphere, flat plane, and then of course the last choice is a mesh. It kind of goes off screen, but the last choice is the mesh, and of course that's where you would import your own particular mesh. And then we have a tessellation level. We can actually adjust that up or down as we need. Its standard default is 5. And I don't tend to move that much. And you can actually change the tiling effect on this. You can actually make it tile more or tile less just with the plus and minus keys. Okay. All right. So that's the quick look at the interface just with nothing in it. Now, of course, we're going to actually import a map. Okay, we're going to load up a height map. Now, there's 2 different ways to load it, technically 3. Go up here to File, Load Height Map. Go to here, Load Height Map. Okay, or Control-Shift-O, which is the shortcut for it. In this case, I've got right there. Okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to just close the 3D preview for now. By the way, if your map ever comes in small, now it generally doesn't. Usually comes in nice and big, but again, because I have this so reduced, it's fitting it to that. You can just left click, and you can, if you left click and hold with your mouse, you can actually zoom in, and then middle mouse pans down. Okay, so that way you can zoom in. So you can see it's just a height map. All right, so that's what the height map looks like. We'll go to our 3D viewer. Of course, this time it kept the size. So this is generally the look you're going to get. Now, by the way, rotating around something, it's very simple. It's left click and drag with the mouse and rotate around, just like in Maya. Middle mouse drag actually will pan or pan through your image. You can see the image is actually cascading up the cylinder there. Okay, and then right mouse will actually change the lighting if you see that. Okay, and then if you use the wheel mouse, that zooms in and out. So you can zoom right on in and zoom way out. Okay, that's the sound of my mouse. It's an old mouse. I apologize for that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of what we can do just with 3D view before we get into adjusting anything. Okay, we can go ahead and change this cylinder to a sphere. So there's the sphere. Again, I'm left clicking and drag, hold, and rotating it around. All right. We also have a plane. Yes, you can actually rotate around on a plane too. It's really cool. I can zoom in. As you can see, by the way the plane has been meshed out, etc., is it's actually deforming the mesh. We can turn on the parallax, and as you can see, it basically flattens that. You don't see how it actually affects everything. So you can switch the parallax on and off, okay? Let's zoom out. By the way, this is what we can do with colored lights. If we turn that off, you see it's just a white light. That's all it is. It's just a white, bright light. Whereas if we turn that on, we get colored lights. Okay, as you can see, one is towards the blue hue. As you rotate around, of course, right-click and move this around, you can get one right into there that's more in the yellow sunset kind of hue. And again, right-click and drag, and I can switch it back. Okay, you can just rotate around. You can angle your views around as you need to. You also have some lighting presets, like I mentioned earlier. So that's lighting preset number 2. Here's lighting preset number 3. And lighting preset number 4. It gives you more of a kind of a brilliant light. It's either a brilliant kind of a night light or a brilliant kind of daylight. All right. So you want to keep that in mind. You can switch those out, or like I said, at any point you can just right-click and drag around, and you can change the angle of the light. You can see how that could affect it, or you can just change which one it is. I can do one in between. If you'll notice that you get that nice kind of in between. Pull it in just the blue. So again, a lot of fun with that. Not that we're there just to play colors. Obviously we're not. All right, let's go ahead and if we want to take a look, we can go ahead, and here's just the general is we can go ahead and do a bump scale on this thing, so we can really crank that bump up. Okay, so you can see that really does deform that map some. Really does deform that out. Look how high that goes. Again, we might be able to switch this to the cylinder if that'll make it easier to see. And again, I can middle mouse and scale this up. It looks like I'm rotating the model. I'm not. I'm rotating I'm panning through the image. It's not rotating the image. I'm panning through the image, and it's panning through the cylinder. But I'm not actually rotating the cylinder. I'm only rotating when I left click and hold. Okay? By the way, with this particular image, this is when we can add in the different UVs. As you notice, I just clicked it up, and we just got 2 variations, or it just doubled. I can now do it again and again and again, and you can just double it, keep on doubling it if you want. Of course, I can do it back down, or if I do it up and I don't like where I've gone with it, I can always double click. Here's the fun thing. If we turn it up and when we get back to our original, just double click the middle mouse, because the middle mouse allows us to scroll, pan up and down through the image. So double click on the mouse or the wheel mouse, and you'll get your original image back. Okay, and that's really a fun feature. I love that. Right. Same can be said for if you want to rotate your model and you don't like the angle you've got, you just double click with the left button, and it goes back to your original view. Same with, you want the original light, you double click on the right button and you get the original lighting. This is the original lighting. I really like that. They make that really easy. In case you don't like what you've done or it's a little confusing, it makes it pretty quick to be able to do something like that. And I love that. I think that's just awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click this button to hide the 3D view for a second. So as you can see, we have, this is our original height map. We now have a normal map, a derivative map. We have AO map, concavity, convexity, but there won't be a transmission on this one. But in seconds, I mean, when I loaded this particular height map up, it took 2 seconds to come on screen, and it already created all these maps for us right off the bat, which I just love. That makes it really stupid simple for us. We could then, of course, export the whole thing and do what we need to with it. All right. So that really comes in handy. And I gotta tell you, I really enjoy that about this program. All right. However, okay, that was loading in a height map. If we load this in, okay, as a color map, if we go to the original one and load it in as a color map, right off the bat we get a whole different set of circumstances, a whole bunch of different things that we can do with this. Okay. Yes, we can go ahead and adjust the bump scale as we need to. As you can see that it's real time, doing it on the fly. I can also change the intensity. Okay. I can also do an invert. And this is again what I talked about earlier, where you can actually invert. And this is actually inverting. As you saw, it actually changes what is seen as up in the normal map. I just love that. Just boom, instantaneous, and I can keep doing the changes that I need to with it. Of course, I can middle mouse and scroll through this as well. Now I can change the intensity up on here, and if I turn the bump scale down, I get something that is nice and bump, but it's not as severe, and it reads a little bit more realistic. Okay, so it really is something to keep in mind. Also, this is one that sometimes I might play with the slope range percentage. Okay, I'm not going to for this, but I can. And of course I can click on the smooth to help smooth things out, blur some of the minor details a little bit if I wanted to. I can also, let me go ahead and zoom in, I can also adjust the fine details. You notice that? Oh, that was right there. Look at that. You can see it sharpen up. See all right in here. Check out the crevices in here. If I put it down, look at that. I can just control that as I need to. I can do the same with the fine. And as you can see, the fine all of a sudden it starts getting sharper. Okay, I can go ahead and adjust the medium, adjust the large, extra large, etc. Okay, and it's all real time. It makes it really sweet. By the way, again, this parallax, see, it just becomes like it's a flat. You never see any changes in the deformation of anything with this parallax on. If I turn it off, that's when you actually see changes in how the piece looks. So you want to keep that in mind. I don't often use the parallax on it, but it's fun to see what's going on with it, to be able to change things as you need to. So let's try this on the sphere real quickly. That's cool. Let's change the preset. There we go. This is the preset 1. Very nice. And again, I love the fact that once we've got this done, like let's assume I want to do this. I love the fact I'll just click the update integrator, and what it's doing is updating everything, creating the maps based on the specifications I gave. Let me go ahead and hide the preview, and we'll go ahead and left click this up and move it in. Okay. So there we have our map, height map, derivative based on everything we did, the AO. Oh, and by the way, actually that's something I should show you. The ambient occlusion, all of these particular pieces, if you'll notice, this is very important. You will get changes to the information within the integrator panel, okay? So I can adjust the intensity on the normals and all this sort of stuff, but if you go to the AO, I have controls on the AO as well. If you scroll down, I can actually turn the intensity up, invert. I can change the scaling on this. Check this out. Ooh, wow. That really drops it down as I need to. Okay. With the concavity, I'm sorry, it's the same thing. The blur amount, you can see, look at how that blurs it out. It becomes almost like veins. Or, of course, all the way back so there's no blur whatsoever. Stabilization, okay, and then the scale of the cavity. You can see how strong it's going to. Oh, look how it blurs out on the edges too. Look at that, I love it. All right, convexity. You have similar controls with the blur amount, of course. You can see that blur right out. Okay, stabilization, contrast. How hard do you want it to contrast? You can see that gets pretty severe. And of course, as you pull it down, it gets to almost nothing. Okay, so all of these have controls to them, and you want to remember that and keep that in mind because, obviously we want to be able to, get the map that we want based on what we're doing with this information over here. Let's try to blur them out over here. See, that's just awesome. All right, and then of course, if we want to export, we can just click here. Okay. Make sure we got our path set up where we're going to do it. Now this is the default paths, but I don't want to actually do anything with it yet. Let's assume we were doing the height map, normal map, AO map. Well, not even the height map. We started with the height map. So we're going to do the normal AO and convexity. Okay, so you can just do File, Export, and it's Export All, which is Control E. All right, so Control E, and you export the thing right out. Again, we can save the configuration as we need to, but it makes it pretty simple. And you'll notice how quickly we were able to create the map. That's what I love about it. It's just that quick. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do another one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and load a color map, and I'm going to do one of these barks. I think that'd be kind of cool to do. As you can see, it goes ahead and drops it in. We already have some details working. Pretty cool. All right. We can change that to a sphere. The nice thing about this, let me show you that on the cylinder. It'll probably be easier to see. Again, if I middle wheel. I'm not sure what you call that. It's a middle mouse and hold and scale it up and down. I'm scaling through the image. I'm panning through it. And luckily, of course, it's a tileable image, so you can get you get the idea of how it's going to look from pretty much all over, but it looks pretty cool, okay? Again, if we crank up that bump scale, we can really crank it up so severely that it's like, wow, that'd be kind of harsh. Turn the intensity down a little bit here, okay? But I've brought the bump up and turned the intensity down. What I should probably do, of course, is turn the bump down and turn the intensity up a little bit. All right. We can go for fine details. It'll keep the stuff that we set last. Maybe if it's something that we like, maybe we want the extra large details to be bigger, or the extra fine details. All right. Oh wow, you can actually see. That's really nice. Look at that. It gets it. This program gets it to like literally the nth degree. It's just fantastic. I love this program. It has so much stuff going for it. So we can turn around and easily make the different maps. Let's assume again this is something that we like. We're good with it. By the way, in fact, if you're noticing this. The maximum iterations for the processor, to be able to process the image out, etc. Again, the default is 300. What you're seeing here is that this is the best solution that it gave you. It didn't give you 300, it gave you 298 because that's the best solution for this particular image. So again, if you set this up to 500, maybe go to 450, or if you went down to 83, maybe be less. In fact, let's go ahead and crank that down. I'll go ahead and just do 90. All right. I'm going to update the integrator. And it's actually reading through everything, just recalculating. So I did it at 90, and it gives us 89. So there you go. But look at that. The detail just comes out so nicely. Again, if we hide this, we have left click and drag towards the left to zoom in, and then middle mouse pan down. So we've got the normal map. Okay, we've got our height map, which technically was our color map. We have the normal, the derivative, the AO, really nice, crisp, clear AO. I tell you, this program does some really nice stuff. I love the AO. It's usually just enough, The concavity, check that out. That's just Awesome. Again, I'm just zooming in with the left mouse hold and then moving towards the left. The convexity, get some of those highlights in there. Love it. It's a very good program. It's great. If you can get this sort of result from a diffuse, just a color map, that's really saying something. That's really nice. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and load a different bark just to see differences so we can see something else going on with it. There you go. Wow. And of course completely tileable, so I can just pan through the image. It just slides up and down on the cylinder. I mean, that's just fantastic. I tell you, this is a program that really comes in handy for generating the different maps. And again, of course, we can crank up the bump, although I wouldn't crank up the bump so severely. I'd probably just bring the intensity up. Zoom in, yeah, it's really fine. Do we need to invert it? I don't know, let's see. Now at the end first, you can see actually all of a sudden it went from looking like bark to it looks like something decayed almost. Just flip it and you're good. And then of course we can go ahead and click our integrator, so it's now going to do it, and as you see it reads through and actually then deforms as need be. Okay. And now again we have our different maps all set. Now I have a height map based on that. Really nice height map. Normal, derivative, ambient occlusion. Look at that ambient occlusion. That's just fantastic. Convexity and concavity. Well, I'm sorry, concavity, convexity. All right, there's a difference between the two. But just that quick. I mean, it's a single button click. I mean, you can do all this sort of stuff. By the way, check this out. If we want, we were talking about this earlier. I was talking about the specular intensity and the gloss. Let's change this to a sphere. Okay, so we can now like really crank that up. Look how that really brings that shine in there. Just really cranks up the specularity. Or, of course, we can really crank this up and make it look, you know, completely wet. Bring the speck down a little bit. It's got a nice plasticky kind of sheen to it. Or, of course, we can bring it down to almost a flat. And the specularity we can drop all the way down. So it ends up being a very, very flat color to it. All right. So keep in mind, you can this so you can visualize what it is you're dealing with and what you're creating. You know, it's one of those things that you want. You know, to just go through controls without being able to see something, it makes things very confusing. To be able to see something, interacting real time, of course, just makes things so much easier. You can get a real idea of what you can do with it. Of course, with the sphere, I could still middle mouse and then pull it up. Again, I'm not rotating the sphere. I'm just panning through the image, and it's scaling up. Or, of course, we can go to our plane and rotate that around. See, that really, really cranks that up there. Check that out. But, of course, I can pan through this, too. There we go. Change the lighting on this with the right click and drag. There we go. Get something kind of in between or pull it around a little bit. There we go. Nice. All right. And again, see parallax. Parallax looks like from the front, you look like you've got a really great bump map and everything else, but you technically haven't done anything to that plane. So you take it off, and then you can see, yeah, you have. All right. All right, let's go ahead and load up another one. This time we're going to do the moon. Okay, actually, before I do the moon, I actually want to load up a different color map. Again, 3 ways. You could do the file, open that way, load it this way, or use the control, whichever way you want to do, Control Alt O. All right. This is a castle wall. It's from a castle I actually took some photos when many years ago I went to Scotland, and I took photographs, obviously, of a bunch of different things, and one of them was I like taking pictures of castle walls because, of course, me being a 3D artist, I'm always planning ahead. Hey, maybe we could use this for fantasy or whatever. At the company I was at, we were looking to do a fantasy game, so it kind of worked out in our favor. But at the time, this was before ZBrush had Spotlight and a few other things, so it was difficult taking a photograph and then trying to work up a normal map in ZBrush based on what I had done. And we actually fudged it through Photoshop, etc. But what I love about this program is if only I'd had this program then, it would have been fantastic. I mean, as you can see, now, even though it's not even tileable, you can see it's not tileable, but you wouldn't even notice that. But all I did was load the picture in, and right off the bat, I have like a perfect wall. That's what I love about this, is I can go ahead and then, I don't want to go that far with it, but I can obviously adjust that up, pull this down a little bit. You can see how that changes the intensity. I mean, it depends on how subtle you want those the looks to be on it, but that's pretty cool. We can add in, of course, some of the finer details, some of the medium ones, but I tell you, I would have paid serious money to be able to do something like this years ago with a program like this. It's just great. And I actually have several different ones. Let me show you one here. This is off a gravestone. Okay, I'm doing the scrolling through it with the middle mouse. Okay, but look at that. Okay, and that's from just a color image. I obviously don't have a bump map on this thing. I don't have normal maps on this. Of course, this is when you can invert it and have a little fun with it. Yeah, does not look right, but you invert it, you do it the correct way. But this program is just invaluable. I mean, to be able to crank something like that up, adjust this up a little bit, push it a little bit more, from a photograph to get something like that. And you almost couldn't read that in the photograph, in the original photograph. This is the original photograph I took. I mean, you get some of that in there, but for it to vary it out and get the photograph from this to be able to have something like that, that's just fantastic. I love it. I'm going to put this on the plane and see how well it does. All right. In fact, I'm going to do a bit of a side-by-side comparison. Well, there we go. That's just fantastic. It's reading, in fact, because there are some chips in it, some white pieces. It, of course, reads that as high areas, based on a height map. But that's just fantastic that it got all that from this. I don't know any other program that does that, and especially that quickly, that interactively. It's just fantastic. If I sound like I'm fawning all over it, it's because I am. It's just, I love this program. It comes in handy, I'll tell you. If this isn't a program that you've been checking out lately, you should. You should seriously think about getting it. This is one of those that this is a lifesaver on time and could really come in handy for a bunch of different things. I mean, again, especially if you're loading up something that you only have literally a single photograph on. Oh, here's one on shingles. This was actually up on the roof. Look at that. One shot. Boom. Now, obviously, it's completely untiled because the photo that I took didn't have tiling to it. I would have blended that all together. But right off the bat, for that to be giving me that kind of look, if I just go ahead and update the integrator, let it read through, okay, and if I hide that, left click and drag, okay, there we go. There's the AO. Look at that AO. That's just mind-boggling. Convexity, concavity, convexity, and a height map. I tell you, that's just beautiful. Fantastic. I hope you guys are seeing the possibilities of what you can do with this, because I'll tell you, if it doesn't save you time, I don't know what would. All right, let's go ahead and now do the moon, okay? All right, let's go ahead. We're in a file. The image is actually this. I actually downloaded this from, I don't know, I think NASA put it up there. It's the lunar surface, a DEM of the lunar surface. DEM is digital elevation map. And I thought, ooh, wow, okay, that could be kind of fun. So let's go ahead and do the file. We're going to load the height. Actually, I always like loading the height and everything else as a color map. I don't know why. I just get more on. I find I get more out of it, but you can do the same. So here it is right off the bat. Let's go ahead and put it on a sphere. All right, so there it is. There it is. Let's see, bump scale is probably a little rough. But it's kind of, you know, hard to see. I mean, you've got all these stripes through it because obviously if we look over here, it's a long image. It's not a square image. It's a long one. So it obviously isn't quite panning to what we want. But hey, that's okay. We can go ahead and now click this button here, Load Mesh. All right. If I click that, load the moon. All right. There we go. Now it's all on there. And now because the moon itself, the mesh, obviously, had a spherical map on it. Or I'm sorry, it had a spherical UV layout. So it meant because this digital elevation map was the entire moon, it was going to lay in and work perfectly for what we need, and of course it does. I can rotate it all the way around, everything else. All right, so let's go ahead and just change our presets. Get a different lighting setup. Kind of interesting. Can rotate this around. Oh, and by the way, let's go ahead. I just want to go ahead and turn the colored light off just for a second. So there it is, just like if it was a white, dead-on, no color lighting whatsoever. Now, up until now, having the colored lights and everything, you know, I find the color lights help when you're using just the standard shapes. But as soon as you have something that has real UV coordinates that is going to apply onto the model and work perfectly, sometimes it's kind of cool to look at it without any of the colored lights, and you can really see what's going on. And again, you can zoom in to the nth degree. I mean, look at that. That's just fantastic. And of course, you can look how that sharpens it up on the fly. Of course, you can dumb it down. If you were to dumb this way down, let's see, we take the look at that. It almost blurs it right out, the extra fine details. Now, of course, you could always do a little bit of a mix, do extra fine and add in some fine details. You can even see how the medium, you see how that's sharpening it up, that's bringing up, you know, really bringing that in a little bit. Same with some larger details. That actually brings some more of the shadowing. You can see it if you check out this area. You can see how it actually lightens and darkens it up a little bit. Of course, same with the extra large. You can really see that affect the lighting. Check that out. Okay. So that's really sometimes a handy feature to be able to take off the colored lights, because sometimes they actually work, depending on the model, but sometimes it works against you. It's sometimes nice to be able to see the light through something that's unfiltered, had no coloration whatsoever. Okay. Now, of course, we only have the one normal map because we haven't upgraded our integrator. Let's assume that we've got something that we like, something that could probably work for what we want. All right. And by the way, when you've actually put a model on here that has UVs so that this will apply, usually when you middle mouse and pull down, you're actually panning through the image. The image is panning over the object. But now, because it actually has UVs and has a UV layout and everything, when you middle mouse and move it, you're actually just panning around. There's no sliding the image around at all. Okay, I can adjust where the light is with my right mouse button, and I can rotate the view, but I can no longer pan the image through the object. I can now just pan the object itself. All right? So keep that in mind when you have UVs. You'll no longer be panning the image through the model. You'll actually be panning your model around, okay? But that's just great. So this is the moon. Looks like you could almost hold it in your hand. I'm going to crank the specularity down a little bit and pull the gloss down a little bit, just so we can see something a little bit more of what we would expect to see. I don't think we'd expect to see it so shiny, etc. I think I'll also turn the scale on the bump down just a little bit. Now, however I'm adjusting it down here, it's going to update everything over here, and so when I export the maps out, they'll read just like this. Okay? It's not like they're going to jump back to what it was originally. I'm going to go ahead and update the integrator. You're going to see as it updates. Okay? And that's just what I put it down to. Let's go ahead and hide this. You'll notice that that's left mouse drag towards the left. You notice we now have, where we didn't before, we now have a normal map. It's not severe, it's not extreme because we toned it down. There's our height map. There's our normal. We have the derivative. We have an AO map. Really nice. All right. Actually, this AO might be a little intense. I might want to crank that down a little bit because it's a little hard. I should think somewhere around there. Something around there should be better for an AO map. All right. Also, by the way, let me show you this real quickly. If you go back to the show preview, if I scroll down and click a mesh AO, that actually gives a slight variation. Oh, and now it's dragging. Now you can feel when I'm actually turning that on, it's actually then hitting the rays, and you can actually, it's being hit by 512 rays. Obviously you can crank that up, but I'll tell you what, at least with my computer, the fact that that's on, it drags on the system. It really does. It drags on it, but you know, it's what you're hitting with. As soon as I take that off, it's perfect. It goes right back in. But you know, again, it's one of those things that we can adjust and play with as we need to. But oh, and by the way, that's something the other thing I meant to show you. Now that we actually have this image here, we can adjust now. We're looking at the light. This is the lit view of this model with the lighting, the different let's get the colored lights back in there. Okay, so there's the colored lights. Let's crank up the specularity a little bit so we can see it a little more. There you go, okay? But I can now click this little arrow and I can do just the height map, okay? So I'm looking at just the height map only. There's the AO only, the ambient occlusion only, all right? You can go through all of these maps. There's the concavity, convexity, there's the normal, again, really nice normal, and the derivative, all right? So you can see what each one is looking like and how it's affecting the model, etc. right off the bat. Set it back to lighting and you're back to your original shot. But you can actually go through that and check to see what you like on all of them and make sure you're liking what you see on every individual map. And I love that feature. I just think it's fantastic. It really does come in handy. All right, let's go ahead and export these maps. Again, we can go ahead, we can click the, well, we started with the height map, so we don't need that. So we can do the normal map, AO map, and convexity. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as Targas. I'm going to go ahead and click the viewport path, and I need to get to where I have my 3D motive set. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and select that as a folder. Once that's done, I just have to hit Control E. That was it. Done. Let's look at that in Photoshop. Let's look at them. Okay. Oops. You guys probably can't see it. It's a little out. There we go. Okay. And we need to get into here. All right. There we have it. We have the cavity, convexity, normal, and occlusion. Let's go ahead and take a look at those. So there you go. There's the ambient occlusion. That's at 100%. Just fantastic. Okay. There's our normal. 100%. Convexity. These are the ridges. So it'll give us the ridges where everything is. And then, of course, our cavity. All right. Now, of course, what we could do with that is if we get the occlusion, convexity, and cavity. Okay, we've got the occlusion. Let's go ahead and grab that. Control A, Control C. And we're going to go ahead and Control V it. Control A, Control C. And we're going to Control V it. All right. From here, we can turn this on multiply, for instance. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. And we could do this one. Let's try screen. All right, so check this out. So there's the ambient occlusion. We can add in the cavity. Probably a little hard. Let's crank this down a little bit, something like that. And then the convexity added in as well. See that? Brings it up. It changes it just slightly. I'd probably bring this down to about 70, I would say. All right. So you can see how that adds in. If you want to add that into the ambient occlusion, I think it only would help to do something like that. Yeah, there you go. I think it just adds to it. So again, a couple button clicks and we have, a model maps, everything ready to go. Just a fantastic program. Fantastic program from a single photograph, from a single DEM map, digital elevation map. That's what we got. I mean, that's kind of hard to fathom, but it works fantastically, and I love it. All right, now that we've got that squared away, let's go ahead and this is the sphere, the moon. This is in an older version of Marmoset. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to add the diffuse. Well, we don't technically have a diffuse. That's right, we do have the normal. So let's go ahead and look to add that. So it's right there. Okay, as you can see, we get already, check that out. That's awesome. Right off the bat. Let's go ahead and grab the occlusion. Okay. We don't have a spec on this thing. Let's go ahead and I'll use the DEM. I will go ahead and use the original DEM map for the diffuse. I did a quick conversion of it just so I had it. There we go. All right, so there's the moon in Marmoset with the information we gave it. We don't have a spec map. I guess we could have made one, but wow, if we use that, we could just tone the color down to the nth degree. Of course, we can change our light. We can change to something more like sunlight. Wow. That certainly comes out. That just shows you how awesome that is. That just really, without doing anything, I was able to get that. Look at that. And this was from a simple digital elevation map. That's absolutely beautiful. My goodness. That's just great. And of course we can add in lights as we need to. I mean, if we want to tone down the light a little bit, and add a light. Of course, we can click and drag that. Get more of a space scene kind of thing going for it. I'm just going to darken this up a little bit. There we go. And add another light. Pull this one, say, over here. Turn the intensity down on it. I'm going to change it to kind of I'll have to go for a yellow. Just pull that over a little bit. And that's a not too dissimilar type of light setup that was actually in Knald itself, if you'll recall. We've got something like this, and we can actually, like I said, because we can turn around and move the lights around, we've got kind of a yellow-orange, and we've got a blue. So here we've got a yellow, orange, and a blue. I can turn the brightness down a little bit, for instance, and we can get something just like it, similar enough to. I just can't get over. I'm always impressed when a simple map can give me all of this. I just think that's fantastic. I'm going to turn the rotation of the lighting around a little bit. That's just great. Okay, anyway, I think that's about it for the moon. I think we've gotten a really good introduction to Knald and what we can do with it. I know there's a lot of information in this particular piece, and we've got 3 different panels we got to be cognizant of, etc. And there's a lot of information, but I think it'll be easier the more we do it. I think it's already getting pretty easy. I think in the next course, or the next volume I should say, we're going to go ahead and look at characters and a couple other things as well. So I hope you've had fun with this. I know I have. This has been Stephen G. Wells for 3dmotive.com, and I'll see you in the next volume. Hi, and welcome to 3dmotive.com. My name is Stephen G. Wells. I'm a senior 3D artist. In this volume, we're going to continue the work we started previously in Knald, but we're actually going to start working with characters to see what we can do. We're going to bring in a mesh for a kind of a fish head, and we're actually going to generate a mesh AO within Knald that actually gives us better results for AO maps. We're then going to jump into adjusting details for what we're going to apply to a spider type creature to see what that's going to look like and how well it's going to push out the different polygons via the normal map. We're then going to look at applying the different maps and the different layers in Photoshop to see what sort of effect we can get. We're then going to jump into a demon head, and we're going to make some adjustments with that and with some of the details. We're going to actually render out the AO map twice. One is a regular AO rendering, and the other as one that we're going to tweak it a little bit to get a different variation on it, which might actually get a really good effect. And then lastly, we're going to look at creating this antique kind of style plaque and the different maps we can generate from that. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what Knald can do with some characters. So again, we're going to open up or import a normal map. We can either go to the File, Load, or we can just do the Control O. We're going to go down to a normal that I have here. It's called Fish Face. So as you can see, Knald is integrating it. You can see how it's looking on the default cylinder. So it's just loading everything up at this point. Right off the bat with just a normal map, you're getting some really good looks right in there. Let's go ahead and finish it up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hide the 3D preview for just a second, and then left click and drag towards the left so we can zoom in. And I'm going to pan down with my middle mouse. Alright, so right there we have the height map. I mean, in just seconds it created a beautiful height map. We have the normal map, the derivative, we have the AO map, concavity, convexity. Okay? Pretty quick, pretty simple. Let's go ahead and change the mesh. We're going to click the load mesh, and we're going to grab the fish face OBJ. So you can see that's really pretty good right off the bat. Really, really nice, okay? And again, we can zoom in and out with our wheel mouse. We can get in nice and close and see it. All right. So we've got everything set up. We've got the max iterations. Everything's squared away. I don't want to click the smooth because if I click a smooth on this, it'll actually kind of blur everything out a little bit because that's what smooth basically does. But it's a really quick, simple map. All right. Create it very quickly. Let's go ahead and turn off the colored lights for a second. So there you can see what the model is really looking like. All right. And this is in fact just a model I did as an old bust for one of my classes. So, you know, it's simple, but it gets the point across with what you can do with this, okay? All right, so, one of the nice things I want to show you now that I can actually look to do this is for the AO, okay? Let me go ahead and hide the preview. This is our AO map, okay, where we have you know, a very nice, very good generated AO map. This is like a standard AO map, okay? I'm going to go ahead, if we go to our preferences, or for the export, we're going to keep everything as it is. Let's just go ahead and make sure that we're going to change our export. We're going to just create a new folder. It's actually in my, it's right here, it's the Knald maps folder, just one I quickly created. Make sure everything's set. Let's go ahead and go for our preferences, or for the export. We're going to export the height map, AO map. I don't even need the convexity at this point. I just want the AO and the height map, since we already have the normal map, okay? Now let's go ahead and hit Control E, and that's going ahead and exporting everything. As you can see, it just went through it. Okay, so in Photoshop, I'm just going to double click. So here are our two maps for us that it just created for us. All right, we have the occlusion, the regular ambient occlusion, and we have the height map. Okay, really nice, very quick. I'm doing this for a reason because I want to go ahead and just close these. In fact, actually, what I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and load up the fish face normal. I just want to have that there. I'm going to go ahead and grab our two maps. I'm just going to copy each one and drop it down. Okay. I'm just doing Control A, Control X, Control V. Usually I drag and drop it, but I don't have enough space as it's showing right now. So there's the height map. There's our ambient occlusion map. Okay. I've got that there for a reason because what I want to show you now is in Knald. Let's go back to the main and show the 3D preview. Now this is the model with the different the colored lights, etc. If we click here and go to our AO lighting, so it's just the AO, that's our AO map, okay? That's what it looks like. One of the nice things about Knald though is, yes, it gives you an AO map right off the bat, and it's just as, in fact, I find, in fact, that the Knald ambient occlusion maps tend to be a little bit cleaner. I don't know the algorithm they're using for this, but their normal maps tend to be a little cleaner than some of the other normal maps and other programs I use. So it does come in handy. But one of the things we can do is there's this button under the ambient occlusion. There's a mesh AO scale, okay? Mesh AO ambient occlusion. The AO scale we're going to leave alone, we're not going to touch, but it's this mesh AO, okay? If we click on that, what's going to happen is you can see it counting up. It's creating an ambient occlusion based on this view, or based of the model being in here. And look how clean that's working right off the bat. All right, it's at 30% and it's going through. You can see what's being created on this side. Obviously, we have a bunch of empty material. I don't care about that. We just want to make sure everything looks good for the map itself. And it's going ahead and loading that up and calculating everything. It's based on 512 rays. You can go up to, I think I remember them saying that you could go up to like 4096. So a 4K kind of rays, I guess for 4K maps if you want to do them. But I'm going to go ahead and pause it while it's calculating. It's going to take about 20 seconds or so. Okay, and so it finished up. Now I can go back to spinning the model in real time, but look at that. even cleaner. Let me go ahead and hide this view, and this way we can zoom in. Look at that. I'll tell you what, that's some really nice AO, ambient occlusion. That's really nice. Look at that. It's got every little section done. I tell you what, it's very clean. And like I said, I find that these honestly are tend to be some cleaner ambient occlusion maps than what are generated from some other programs, and very quickly. All right, I'm going to go for the export. I'm going to go ahead and change this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just re-export the map. Okay, and now in Photoshop, we're going to go back to opening up that ambient occlusion and check it out. We've got the new ambient occlusion in there. So now we have, if we had a color map for this, and we don't, but right off the bat, oh, look at that. So that's what comes in, and this is okay. This is an ambient occlusion map. It works. A lot of programs, this is about what you can get, okay? But to do a calculation like that and then being able to render that out right off the bat, that's just fantastic. All right? And that's a very, very clean, really nice ambient occlusion map. All right? Look at that. It got the little mole here, all of the little wrinkles, everything. That's some clean calculations, I'll tell you. And Knald did that in just seconds. And you really can't beat that. That's really awesome. Of course, if you wanted to, now I mean I wouldn't, but if you want to, we can go back into Knald, go to the AO map, of course, and we can look to change the scale on this. Oh, there you go. Seriously, that's an AO map and a half. If you look at it, it updated real time on this map. I mean, look at that. That's obviously not the way you would want to go. But the fact that you can go that way is just amazing. All right? Of course, you can always turn it down and almost blanket it completely out. But I just find the fact that we can adjust that on the fly and in real time, and it updates everything. That's fantastic. And we could then, of course, re-export this model out and have an AO map that we could blend into the diffuse and make something even cooler, I guess. I mean, you could certainly use it. I've certainly blended in some variegated ambient occlusion maps where they were just this dark. You know, I don't necessarily use them this dark all the time, but I have on a few models. And to have something like this where I can actually, you know, I can keep adjusting it. Let's crank it all the way up to 1,000. And that's really severe. But the fact that I can do it and it's real time and I can export this out is just phenomenal. I mean, I can't say enough about it. I just think the fact that we can turn around and adjust this on the fly, real time, and export this out to enhance our diffuse maps, or even we can actually use this to enhance our original AO map. Just phenomenal. All right, let's go ahead and move on to another model. Oh, and let me show you too, while I'm at it, in Marmoset. This is the older version of Marmoset. Most of my students have the older version, so I tend to have to work a couple of versions back. But it's the same thing. You can do this in the new Marmoset, but this is the old one right now. Let's go ahead and just add the material. Let's add for our normal map. Okay, right off the bat, very nice. And let's go ahead, just so we can see what it's going to look like, let's add the diffuse. We're going to add the AO map into that because we don't have color map. And there you go. And this is that the actual AO map that came from Knald itself. Okay, the second one that we generated. That's just awesome. I think that works just great. Really supports the normal map very well. I guess if we had a diffuse map, obviously some color map in there, that would have been really cool. We could add in the ambient occlusion over here. But just for now, we can see, you know, the effects that we could probably get with that shadowing in there. But that really looks very, very clean. Very clean indeed. And this is just generated from Knald. Okay? Very nice. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next model. All right, so we're going to load a color map this time. We're going to go down. We have a spider map. So right off the bat, of course, we get our regular default cylinder, and it's already looking to give us a really good normal map based on that. Let's go ahead and just hide 3D preview for a second. Let's zoom in. So right off the bat, that is not bad at all. Not bad at all. All right. So we can go ahead and adjust this. Let's go ahead and just going to zoom into this a little bit. Let's take a look at adding in some of the extra fine details. And as you can see, all the little bumps now start showing up a little bit better. Okay, there's some nice work going on in there. Let's go ahead and turn up the fine as well. Now you can actually see it. You can watch this area in here. It kind of blurs out, but then gets stronger when I up the fine. It goes from kind of a nice blur to a little bit sharper. Okay. Medium I'm kind of good with. Let's do the large ones. You can see slight affectations in some of the shading here when I do the larger ones. Okay. Of course, we can always try to do an invert, see what it looks like. Of course, it actually ends up looking like it's an inverted model, which obviously we wouldn't want for something like that. All right. So that's not bad at all. That is not bad at all. Oh, and by the way, I just did a middle mouse and actually scaled it up and down. Remember, this slides the image up and down over the model. All right. But this is kind of a little hard, a little confusing to see what we're dealing with. Let's go ahead and load the mesh. I mean, it's great to have so we can make some adjustments, but let's go ahead and actually put in the actual mesh. Okay. So you've got, this is a very old model, but it's just a spider. A type of spider, a creature. It was for some fantasy game. Of course, we can turn off the colored lights, probably tone down the intensity on the specular. I love the fact that we get kind of a basic, kind of an in-game view of what this could look like, I think that's kind of cool. Change the gloss out, can make it really super glossy, so it's like uber wet. Oh wow, actually that looks a lot like that effect in Photoshop, one of the filters, which makes it all nice and wet when it's really not. But obviously we don't want something that extreme. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the colored lights back on. Let's check a couple of the other lights while we're at it. Oh, that one's better. I think number 2. Actually, number 3 is really good too. And again, I'm just middle wheel mousing in and out on the particular image. Okay, you can see right off the bat that's really getting in. Oh, and I'm middle mouse holding to pan around. Really, some nice looks to that. Okay, really would have a hard time faulting this program. That's really good. I'm going to go ahead and click our update the integrator, because right now we're only running on the fact that this is a diffuse color map and we have a generated normal map, but we technically don't have the other maps yet. So we're going to go ahead and update the integrator, and as you can see, it's going to run through its paces. And as you can see, bam, it's done just that quick. Oh, there's the AO map on that one. Check that out. Almost looks like a negative. Let's go ahead and take a look over here. I'm using the little arrow keys to arrow between them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just hide our preview. So right off the bat, this is the AO map we're getting. Okay, so that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Let's try the mesh AO like we did before. Let's see what it's going to do. Oops, and there it goes. Let it cycle through. It's going pretty quickly. It's at 65%. And done. So there's the AO on this. Damn, that looks good. That was really quick, and again, I think that's really a clean AO on that. Probably a little extreme, and again, I don't know that we necessarily need to go really intense with the AO, but the fact that you can, if you needed that, that's just awesome. That's really, really nice. All right, let's go ahead and go to the export. We want the AO. In this case, we didn't bring in a normal map. We brought it in the diffuse map. So we do want a normal map. We do want the AO map. All right. We can actually, let's go ahead and do the convexity and concavity as well. And while I'm at it too, by the way, I'm going to change the global to a TGA. I want them all to be just TGAs. We have our folder set. So all we have to do at this point is hit Control E. And there it went. Let's go ahead and take a look at that in Photoshop. Okay, so in Photoshop, this is the diffuse map that we have. This is that I created for it. And again, this is an older model, but it worked for what we needed. All right, so that's the regular diffuse map. Let's go ahead and input those new maps into this. Okay, let's do the convexity and the occlusion. All right, so we have the occlusion. I'm just going to copy it out. Let's go back to our diffuse. I'm going to paste it. Now, obviously, that's, can't see anything through there. We're going to go ahead and work through the different options. I think overlay will end up looking the best for this. Now, it looks a little extreme, but that's okay. I'm going to actually crank this down to about 40. Let's go ahead and zoom in a bit just so you can see what this does for that. Okay. If you turn it off, this is just the color. This now is some shadowing and everything. You can see how it bumps some areas up really nicely. All right. Let's go for the cavity. I'm going to go ahead and plonk that in there. And I think the cavity, a multiply will work just fine with this. So here's what it's like with and without the cavity. You can see more of the cracks, more of the crevices. Looks really, really nice in there. Okay. And then for the convexity, we're going to go ahead and plonk this in there. Now, usually I think screen should work the best. Obviously, these, as you just fan through these. By the way, I'm fanning through the different choices using my arrow keys on my keyboard. So we have the darker color, light, and screen I think is going to end up being the best. Color dodge is a little extreme. A lighter color does, it's not really what we're looking for. But like I said, I think screen will work best for this. But obviously, this is really kind of bright. It's adding in a lot. It's adding in all those tips and all those edges, but it's a little extreme. Let me crank this down to, say, 50 or 60. 50 is a little much, I think. Let's go for 40. All right. So as you can see, that really catches those highlights in there on this thing. It's really nice. Catches all the edges. All right. So you can see what this is. Look what this is doing to help. And I think this is really making this turn out a whole lot cooler. All right. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to save this as in the maps. We're going to save it as a TGA. So obviously I want to try this. Let's go ahead and just call it. I'm just going to call it Spider D because that's my diffuse. All right. Okay. So in Marmoset, let's see. There we go. We still have this up. Let's go ahead and go to File. We're going to open the mesh. Yes, go ahead and save or not save. So there is our spider. All right. So let's go ahead and do our material. We're going to add our diffuse in, which is this one. Okay. Nice. Okay. Let's add the normal. Very nice. And we actually do have a spec map I made originally for this model. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab that in there as well and click the button that says Use Specularity. So there you go. With all of the maps, with the convexity and the concavity blended in, we're getting a lot more highlights on the top of this, on the ridges, etc. Really makes it look nice. Really helps emphasize that, etc. All right. Got nice looks underneath, and of course, you know, based on what you want to do, you can change your lighting to, you know, sunset, or we could do for the sunlight. And again, this is the older version of Marmoset. I do apologize for that. Let's go ahead and rotate this around a little bit. We can crank this down, and then of course we could add in lights and do all sorts of stuff. But I think it really pulls it together when you have all the different maps working as one. I think it really starts to blend in and make this piece really kind of pop. Certainly can't beat that. And I don't know a program that works, at least for me, as well as Knald does for this sort of stuff. There are other programs that can generate these sort of maps, but I find Knald is very robust for what we want to be able to do with it. And the nice thing is it's not overly complicated. I mean, you know, we can turn around and make adjustments on the fly. I love that the most, the fact that whatever we're doing over here, you know, we can see it reflected over there. Yeah, that's something you don't get with a lot of programs. Of course, we could always crank this up. Oh wow, that's really extreme. But cool. But very, very cool. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next model. Okay, I accidentally closed Knald before I could open the next model, so that's fine. That's fine. We're going to just open them up. I am going to show you the differences, though. There is a difference in the setup and how things are going to work based on whether you're going to load a normal map, which is generally what you're going to do, or loading a diffuse map. There are differences between what happens as a result of that. So let's go ahead and first open the normal map. Just Control O. We're going to load in our troll normal map. All right. Of course, as it loads, you can see it's starting to build it up over here. It's on our regular default cylinder. So it's loading. You know, it's doing pretty quickly because it's technically making all the other maps. All right. And it's done. Okay. Just left click and drag on this so we can see there's our height map. All right. There's our normal, derivative, AO, concavity, convexity. Okay. So there are the maps that it created automatically. Just by loading the normal map, it creates all of the maps for us. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and load our mesh, our troll mesh. Now, right off the bat, I know something's wrong because, and mind you, this is an old model, but I know something's wrong because it shouldn't have this banding across here like this. All right. So if you get something like that, go to your preferences and click the flip green. Okay. It's going to turn around and reload. You can see, obviously, it instantly corrected itself, and you're now seeing everything as it should be. You know, you should have had the crease indenting, not coming out. All right. So by going to preferences to flipping the green channel, this was obviously a map done in Max. We flipped it, and everything came out just fine now. And again, though, the difference is loading a normal map, it makes the rest of our maps for us right away. Okay, we don't have to worry about doing any of it. Okay, if we click our ambient occlusion, by the way, let's go ahead and do a quick hide window. So this is the regular ambient occlusion with it we would get. And again, I'm just left mouse clicking and dragging to the left. Okay, so this is what we would generally get. Again, we can of course add in that mesh AO, and it's going to actually load up. You can see it's already started cooking it. You're not going to see a difference over here because we're looking at the model with everything going on, the lighting, everything else. So as soon as this is done, it's going to be done fairly quickly. As you can see, it runs through it really quickly, 18 seconds. Let's go to our AO here. And there you go. That's the new baked AO map. Very, very nice. Okay. And of course, we can then just go ahead and export these out, save them, apply them on the models, etc. Okay. So that's not an issue. Now here's the difference. Now, so again, we load a normal map. It creates the maps for us instantly, and we're set to go. So let's go ahead and file, and we're going to load a color map. We're going to do a color map this time. So by loading a color map, right off the bat, and let me go ahead and middle mouse this up to scale it up, right off the bat, it gives us what is basically looking like it wants to turn around and create our normal map for us, okay? Which is fine. Let's go ahead and load our mesh. Okay. So as you can see, it gives us a diffuse, which is what this is, that it's got our diffuse map on it. And it's got this instantly created normal map. But that's it. That's all there is to it, because of course we haven't changed any of the parameters. It doesn't know what it really wants us to do. It'll give us a map. If we go over here, this particular map is based on everything that it read in our diffuse map, okay? This is what it gave us as a result. But we haven't made any alterations. We haven't affected anything. We haven't upgraded our integrator or anything else. All right? So it's not quite sure specifically what you want to do. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and load in a normal map for this too, just so we can see what that's going to do. Okay, so it brought it down a little bit, you know, a little less shininess, but you can see what's going on. So from here, we can now go ahead and make our adjustments, okay? We can turn up the intensity, which is probably way too much. All right, so we're going to turn that back down to say 100. And again, we only have the normal map. This is all the only thing we're adjusting on. We can go ahead and add in some of the finer stuff. All right, gives us a few more wrinkles up there. Just watch the difference. You see how it blends that out? See how it sharpens it up? Okay. We can do some of the larger fine details. You can see some variations going on here. With the medium, not doing a whole lot with that. The larger details, a few variations, and then the extra large details. I'm just going to crank that up a little bit. All right. Now nothing's changed. Technically, we have made changes to the maps, etc., so we know what we're going to be dealing with. But we still don't have any maps here. Again, that's because they weren't created. Unlike the normal map, as soon as you bring a normal map in, all the other maps are automatically generated, period. They're just all done. Because that's the whole point of it. You're loading a normal map, it assumes you know exactly what you're going for, and it creates the maps accordingly. By loading in a diffuse map, it's not sure that what to do yet until we turn around and make our adjustments and make the changes we need to make it look good, and then we have to click the integrator. As you can see, once it starts to integrate and update, you can see the changes being made. It's now updating everything. So you give it a few seconds, 10, 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, depending on your machine. Might even be faster. It loads it up. Nothing will have changed for us over here, obviously, except for that. Nothing has changed here, but look, we now have, if I hide we now have our different maps. Okay? They've now been created for us. All right? And that's the main difference. If you load in the normal map, it does everything based on the normal map. If you load in a diffuse map, you're going to be creating a map from all of that. Okay? Once that's done, of course, like for instance, we can go to our AO map again. And, we can go to the AO and do the mesh AO and let it go ahead and calculate through that. You can see it's already doing it. It's at 22%, 26%. I'll let that go. It's a little slower. Just let that, oh, no, actually it's ramping up right back up. Okay, and it's going to be done. And again, it just gives us a cleaner, detailed AO map. I'm going to go ahead and just hide this. That's a pretty awesome looking AO map. All right. That's the main distinctions between what you're going to load up map-wise, One is everything's being made for us. The other is we're going to adjust and make variations so we can turn around and get the look we're looking for in our model to begin with. Okay? So there you go, something like that. All right? So that is going to be the main distinctions between the two of them. And that's something you need to be very careful about, because if you load up the diffuse and you make all your adjustments, but you don't upgrade the integrator, you're sitting there going, well, where are my maps? Well, you need to create those maps. If you load in the normal map, it's all done for you. You can now make some variations for them. You can change intensities on things and stuff like that. But it already did most of the work for you because it assumed, based on everything that was the information within that normal map, that that was what was going to be presented, and maps were going to be generated off of that. Okay, that's the main difference between the two modes and for what you're loading. Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and actually move to the next model. Okay, let's go ahead and add in our next map, which is a normal map. So as it loads, of course, it's going to be on our default cylinder. And again, as I just explained, because we're doing the normal map, it's going to create all the different maps for us right off the bat. So we're about 80%, 90, and done. Okay, close this for a second. And again, here are the different maps already instantly created based on the normal maps. We have the height map, normal, derivative, AO, the default AO, concavity, convexity. Okay, pretty nice, real quick. All right, let's go ahead and load in the actual mesh for that. Okay, so as you can see, it's this demon head. It's from an old model. It was a fun one, but had all these glowy parts on it. Had a forked tongue even. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the fact that we now have that. Let's go ahead and go to our export. Let's go ahead and make sure this is a Targa. Let's go ahead and change our folder to make sure it is the Knald maps folder that I created. We just want to export the height map, ambient occlusion, concavity, and convexity. All right, and again, just Control E to export. As you can see, it just went through all of them. Let's go ahead and look in Photoshop. All right, so there's our diffuse map. We're going to open up our maps that we just exported. Okay, so we have the original ambient occlusion. All right, let's just go ahead and put that on. I'm going to go ahead and do an overlay, and I'd say probably about 40 just for now. Go to the cavity. I'm going to copy that over, and I'll go ahead and do a multiply on that one. As you can see, the multiply really adds in. Look at all that brings in. Very, very nice. Might be a little hard. Let's turn this down a little bit to about 80. Convexity. Alright, this is the highlights, and let's go ahead and do a screen on this one. And obviously that's way too extreme. I'm going to crank it down to say 30. There we go. Okay. Oh, and I did a height map. I didn't need that, but okay, I missed that one. We don't need that one right now, okay? I'm just going to leave that for a second. Now this is with this original map here. If I crank it up and put it to normal. This is with the original AO map. Good map, great map, nothing wrong with it. But let's look at changing that now. All right. So in Knald, we're going to once again, we're going to go to our the AO map. Hold on, there we go. Let's go to the main, and again, by the way, let's go ahead and turn this to AO so we can see what's going on. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the mesh AO. All right. So it's loading, it's calculating right now, 20%. It's going to go up. Look at that already. Oh, that's so good. Okay, it's going to keep on going through. Now you can rotate the model while it's calculating. I don't. I find it tends to drag a little bit while it's trying to do its calculation. So obviously, you kind of don't want to mess with it while it's calculating. It is a lot. 512 rays at once. Although it's the default, it is calculating. It is making the program work. So you definitely want to make sure that you aren't giving it any extra work by doing so. So I would suggest you wait until it's done calculating. In fact, I'll pause it while it's doing that. Okay, I've got about 4 other programs running, so it took a little bit. but that's okay. It's done now. Look at that. Nice, clean. I'm going to hide that. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and go for exporting. Again, we're only going to do the AO map for this particular case. All right. And yeah, let's just do that. Control E. We're exporting. It's basically overwriting it. All right. So in Photoshop, we're going to open. And we're going to open up the new occlusion. There we go. All right. So we've got this one. If it's on overlay and it's at, say, 40%, we're going to paste in the new one. Going to hide that. We're going to call it as an overlay. Oh, wow. Holy smokes, did that make a difference? Look at that. Okay, but it's still a little strong. Let's crank it to, say, 40. So that's 40, or that's 40. All right? So you can see the difference. That's really, really nice. If we add in the concavity and convexity, that's pretty good. I like that one as opposed to this one. All right? That baking that extra ambient occlusion via the mesh within Knald, I think gives a much, much better result. Look at that. That's just awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and look for saving as. I'm going to go ahead and call this a targa. And I'm going to go ahead and just call this, I'll just call this upper diffuse, just so we've got it. Okay, I like that a lot. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this in Marmoset. We're going to open the mesh up and go to our demon head. So there's the demon head. That's what it looks like. All right. Let's go to our material. We're first going to load in that diffuse map. All right. So there we go, right there. Very nice indeed. Very clean. Okay. Normal map. Okay. We used originally the original normal map for that. So that would be this one. Okay. So that's in. Let's go ahead, and we do have an original spec map for that as well. And I'm going to turn on specularity for that, and we're going to crank this down a little bit. Okay. Very nice. And of course, we actually do have a glow map, which is also called an emissive map. So that really cranks that up as well. This is the glowy bits that I was talking about. So now, of course, we can change our lighting, say a sunset maybe, sky rotation, rotate it around a little bit. Put on a depth of field, actually adjust the ambient occlusion. We can do the field of view, focal distance, all that sort of stuff, but I think that looks really nice. I think that works really, really well. Oh, look at the glow. Look at it. It's kind of charcoaly back there. That's awesome. All right, and again, that's just generated through Knald. Everything is being generated through Knald. The maps are, at least for, you know, if we bring in a diffuse map, it's going to be different. In fact, let's see how different. I'm actually kind of curious. Let's go ahead and assume for a second that we don't have a normal map. So we're going to add just the color map. So if we go to our original color map, as you can see, it gives us all of this right away. Okay, it creates a normal map for us. Let's go ahead and load our mesh. Okay, so there's the mesh as it stands. Let's see if we need to flip the green. No, we're good. All right. Let's go ahead and adjust some of this. 100 might be a little light. Let's go ahead and add in the fine details, crank those up, or extra fine, I should say. There's the fine details. go. I'm going to crank that a little bit. Let's go ahead and load the spec map that we have for it. Okay. All right, let's assume we're looking at something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and now click the update the integrator. So it's now calculating and going through the different maps. All right, going pretty quickly. I'll pause it though in case it, well, actually I may not need to. It's going quickly enough that I'm not going to need to do that. And there it is. And that's the ambient occlusion it gives us based on the color map. Okay, go ahead and hide this preview. Let's pull this in. All right. So there's the ambient occlusion it gives on this. All right. Interesting. It's an interesting calculation. It actually looks good. I think it works well. All right. I still think though that we should try the mesh AO. Let's try that based on this information. Oh wow, check that out. Okay, a different set of calculations gave us a completely different look on this AO map. We didn't get some of this before there. That's really nice. I'm going to pause this while this is working. Okay, and it's done. Gotta tell you, that has some looks to it that I really like. Yeah, I guess it just depends really in which direction you're going, but that's a pretty awesome AO map. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to Control E that. Let's compare the two in Photoshop. I want to see the difference because there's pros and cons to everything. This is the one that we regenerated. This is not the original one. This is the one that we regenerated. Let's go ahead and take a look at the new one though. Oop. Oh, I opened the wrong thing. Okay. Ah, there we go. All right, let's take a look at the two. So that was our first recalculated one, and this is the second one. Wow. That's some serious differences. They both work. I mean, this works, but this one could really work. Again, it's which one do we use? Which one do we use, you know? Let's go ahead and, I'm kind of curious on this one. I'm going to go ahead and paste the new one in. I'm going to change the variation to the overlay to 40%, just like the other one. Let's see if we can see a difference. So that's the newest one. That was the rebake. I see more in this area. Yeah, see, this is just color, mostly color information, but this gets a lot of the shadowing in that location as well. Interesting. So I guess it really depends on what you're trying to do with this. That is interesting. So I tell you, I find that's really, but again, this is Knald. Look how clean that is. That's just awesome. I love it. All right, let me go ahead. I'm going to save this out as well. I don't know that we're going to see a lot of difference in the variations for that. I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick, we'll call this diffuse 2, just so we've got it. All right, so we've got this. All right, let's see what sort of difference we get for the material if we change the diffuse to diffuse 2. No, I really didn't see the difference in it, honestly. At least by adding that in. there's got to be differences to it because obviously it looks completely different. I mean, well, not completely different, but it certainly has, I think, more detail than the first rebake, but okay. Well, again, it's just two different calculations. I guess it's depending on two different methods to bring in two different kinds of ambient occlusions. Obviously, we could then turn around and apply them here, etc. But okay, I guess that one way or the other it works. I'm surprised that's just so cool. That looks so cool. I tell you. I mean, this is good. I like this rebake. That worked. But this rebake based on loading in the color map, and this one's based on loading in the normal map. So there's the two differences between them. Gotta tell you, I like that new one though better. All right, anyway. All right, so there we go. Again, this is the beauty that is Knald. It's coming along awesome. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the last section. Okay, let's go ahead and add in our next map, which is a normal map. So as it loads, of course, it's going to be on our default cylinder. And again, as I just explained, because we're doing the normal map, it's going to create all the different maps for us right off the bat. So we're about 80%, 90, and done. Okay, close this for a second. And again, here are the different maps already instantly created based on the normal maps. We have the height map, normal, derivative, AO, the default AO, concavity, convexity. Okay, pretty nice, real quick. All right, let's go ahead and load in the actual mesh for that. Okay, so as you can see, it's this demon head. It's from an old model. It was a fun one, but you know, had all these glowy parts on it. Had a forked tongue even, but that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the fact that we now have that. Let's go ahead and go to our export. Let's go ahead and make sure this is a Targa. Let's go ahead and change our folder to make sure it is the Knald maps folder that I created. We just want to export the height map, ambient occlusion, concavity, and convexity. All right, and again, just Control E to export. As you can see, it just went through all of them. Let's go ahead and look in Photoshop. All right, so there's our diffuse map. We're going to open up our maps that we just exported. Okay, so we have the original ambient occlusion. All right, let's just go ahead and put that on. I'm going to go ahead and do an overlay, and I'd say probably about 40 just for now. Go to the cavity. I'm going to copy that over, and I'll go ahead and do a multiply on that one. As you can see, the multiply really adds in. Look at all that brings in. Very, very nice. Might be a little hard. Let's turn this down a little bit to about 80. Convexity. Alright, this is the highlights, and let's go ahead and do a screen on this one. And obviously that's way too extreme. I'm going to crank it down to say 30. There we go. Okay. Oh, and I did a height map. I didn't need that, but okay, I missed that one. We don't need that one right now, okay? I'm just going to leave that for a second. Now this is with this original map here. If I crank it up and put it to normal. This is with the original AO map. Good map, great map, nothing wrong with it. But let's look at changing that now. All right. So in Knald, we're going to once again, we're going to go to our the AO map. Hold on, there we go. Let's go to the main, and again, by the way, let's go ahead and turn this to AO so we can see what's going on. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the mesh AO. All right. So it's loading, it's calculating right now, 20%. It's going to go up. Look at that already. Oh, that's so good. Okay, it's going to keep on going through. Now you can rotate the model while it's calculating. I don't. I find it tends to drag a little bit while it's trying to do its calculation. So obviously, you know, you kind of don't want to mess with it while it's calculating. It is a lot. 512 rays at once. Although it's the default, it is calculating. It is making the program work. So you definitely want to make sure that you aren't giving it any extra work by doing so. So I would suggest you wait until it's done calculating. In fact, I'll pause it while it's doing that. Okay, I've got about 4 other programs running, so it took a little bit, but that's okay. It's done now. Look at that. Nice, clean. I'm going to hide that. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and go for exporting. Again, we're only going to do the AO map for this particular case. All right, and yeah, let's just do that. Control E. We're exporting. It's basically overwriting it. All right, so in Photoshop, we're going to open, and we're going to open up the new occlusion. There we go. All right, so we've got this one. If it's on overlay and it's at, say, 40%, we're going to paste in the new one. Going to hide that. We're going to call it as an overlay. Oh, wow. Holy smokes, did that make a difference? Look at that. Okay, but it's still a little strong. Let's crank it to, say, 40. So that's 40, or that's 40. All right? So you can see the difference. That's really, really nice. If we add in the concavity and convexity, that's pretty good. I like that one as opposed to this one. All right? That baking that extra ambient occlusion via the mesh within Knald, I think gives a much, much better result. Look at that. That's just awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and look for saving as. I'm going to go ahead and call this a targa. And I'm going to go ahead and just call this, I'll just call this upper diffuse, just so we've got it. Okay, I like that a lot. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this in Marmoset. We're going to open the mesh up and go to our demon head. So there's the demon head. That's what it looks like. All right. Let's go to our material. We're first going to load in that diffuse map. All right. So there we go, right there. Very nice indeed. Very clean. Okay. Normal map. Okay. We used originally the original normal map for that. So that would be this one. Okay. So that's in. Let's go ahead, and we do have an original spec map for that as well. And I'm going to turn on specularity for that, and we're going to crank this down a little bit. Okay. Very nice. And of course, we actually do have a glow map, which is also called an emissive map. So that really cranks that up as well. This is the glowy bits that I was talking about. So now, of course, we can change our lighting, say a sunset maybe, sky rotation, rotate it around a little bit. Put on a depth of field, actually adjust the ambient occlusion. We can do the field of view, focal distance, all that sort of stuff, but I think that looks really nice. I think that works really, really well. Oh, look at the glow. Look at it. It's kind of charcoaly back there. That's awesome. All right, and again, that's just generated through Knald. Everything is being generated through Knald. The maps are, at least for, if we bring in a diffuse map, it's going to be different. In fact, let's see how different. I'm actually kind of curious. Let's go ahead and assume for a second that we don't have a normal map. So we're going to add just the color map. So if we go to our original color map, as you can see, it gives us all of this right away. Okay, it creates a normal map for us. Let's go ahead and load our mesh. Okay, so there's the mesh as it stands. Let's see if we need to flip the green. No, we're good. All right. Let's go ahead and adjust some of this. 100 might be a little light. Let's go ahead and add in the fine details, crank those up, or extra fine I should say. There's the fine details. There we go. I'm going to crank that a little bit. Let's go ahead and load the spec map that we have for it. Okay. All right, let's assume we're looking at something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and now click the update the integrator. So it's now calculating and going through the different maps. All right, going pretty quickly. I'll pause it though in case it, well, actually I may not need to. It's going quickly enough that I'm not going to need to do that. And there it is. And that's the ambient occlusion it gives us based on the color map. Okay, go ahead and hide this preview. Let's pull this in. All right. So there's the ambient occlusion it gives on this. All right. Interesting. It's an interesting calculation. It actually looks good. I think it works well. All right. I still think though that we should try the mesh AO. Let's try that based on this information. Oh wow, check that out. Okay, a different set of calculations gave us a completely different look on this AO map. We didn't get some of this before there. That's really nice. I'm going to pause this while this is working. Okay, and it's done. Gotta tell you that has some looks to it that I really like. Yeah, I guess it just depends really in which direction you're going, but that's a pretty awesome AO map. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to Control E that. Let's compare the two in Photoshop. I want to see the difference because there's pros and cons to everything. This is the one that we regenerated. This is not the original one. This is the one that we regenerated. Let's go ahead and take a look at the new one though. Oop. Oh, I opened the wrong thing. Okay. Ah, there we go. All right, let's take a look at the two. So that was our first recalculated one, and this is the second one. Wow. That's some serious differences. They both work. I mean, this works, but this one could really work. Again, it's which one do we use? Which one do we use, you know? Let's go ahead and, I'm kind of curious in this one. Let me go ahead and paste the new one in. I'm going to change the variation to the overlay to 40%, just like the other one. Let's see if we can see a difference. So that's the newest one. That was the rebake. I see more in this area. Yeah, see, this is just color, mostly color information, but this gets a lot of the shadowing in that location as well. Interesting. So I guess it really depends on what you're trying to do with this. That is interesting. So I tell you, I find that's really, but again, this is Knald. Look how clean that is. That's just awesome. I love it. All right, let me go ahead. I'm going to save this out as well. I don't know that we're going to see a lot of difference in the variations for that. I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick, we'll call this diffuse 2, just so we've got it. Alright, so we've got this. Alright, let's see what sort of difference we get for the material if we change the diffuse to diffuse 2. No, I really didn't see the difference in it, honestly. At least by adding that in. There's got to be differences to it because obviously it looks completely different. I mean, well, not completely different, but it certainly has, I think, more detail than the first rebake, but okay. Well, again, it's just two different calculations. I guess it's depending on two different methods to bring in two different kinds of ambient occlusions. Obviously, we could then turn around and apply them here, etc. But okay, I guess that one way or the other it works. I'm surprised that's just so cool. That looks so cool. Oh, I tell you. I mean, this is good. I like this rebake. That worked. But this rebake, based on loading in the color map, and this one's based on loading in